Unfortunately, Thor Love and Thunder didn't bring much love or thunder. Hey, welcome back to the party, everybody. My name's Jaren, and yes, today we were talking about Thor Love and Thunder. I just checked it out, and it's a film that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and sadly, my opinion just continues to sour more and more on this movie. Before I get into my full review, make sure to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this movie. Also, tell me, what is your favorite movie in the Thor franchise? He's the first hero within the MCU to have 4 solo projects, and the response on each of those films are mixed, to say the least. So I definitely love to hear what you guys have to say. Just to preface, I was not the biggest fan of Thor Ragnarok. I think it's an okay movie. I do think that for the most part, it does a fine job at balancing the action, the comedy, and the overall spectacle of everything. Although I will say that the reason I don't like it as much as a lot of people is I thought a lot of the humor was forced and a little bit overboard, and at times it did seem to put the humor ahead of the actual narrative. In comparison to Thor Love and Thunder, Thor Ragnarok actually does a very good job. From the very beginning, Thor Love and Thunder establishes itself as a comedy first and foremost. That is its main objective. That is the entire premise and point of this film, is to deliver the MCU's first prime example of a comedic venture. Labeled another classic Thor adventure, we find Thor in another state of just still trying to find himself, and in the process going out doing a lot of things that are very bombastic, wild, weird, wacky, to say the least. Obviously, from the trailers and from marketing, we knew that the Guardians of the Galaxy were going to play somewhat of a role in this movie, and I will tell you, this is not too much of a spoiler, but if you're going to this movie looking for an all-out Thor and Guardians adventure from beginning to end, you're going to be extremely disappointed, because they really don't have much of a part to play in this movie at all. It's more so the idea of it all and the concept that, hey, we're gonna catch up with them after the events of Endgame, but it doesn't go much further than that. Thor has a training montage. We see him do split kicks. He saves the world over and over and over again, but it's all done with such a comedic effect that you don't really feel any impact of it. It's more so meant for a little bit of a gag, a joke here and there. And to start off, I was actually pretty into it. I thought it was entertaining enough, and I was enjoying it. It felt like, of course, this is a 2-hour runtime. It feels like it was moving at a brisk pace, and I was fine with that to begin with, but I was also excited to see what direction the narrative was going to go and how it would take that dramatic turn, especially with introducing Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher. We get an opening scene with his character that introduces a concept that is extremely interesting and unlike anything that we've ever really explored within the universe so far, so I was hoping to see more of that side of things, because Gorr is a very disturbed, broken character who's set out on a mission that could cause a lot of destruction, and this story was supposed to have a massive weight, but as the plot continued to progress, everything just started to unfold, and it didn't really go anywhere. Nothing ever got any more dramatic than it was in the very beginning, but it doubled down, it tripled down on the comedy. There's always been sort of a character crisis with Thor and how to use him and implement him within the universe. People had a negative reception to the first Thor movies because of the mixture of emotions of, this is too dark or it's too bland. We need him to be more livened up a bit. And so Taika Waititi comes in with Thor Ragnarok, and everybody's like, yes, more of this. I love the liveliness. I love the aesthetic. Everything about it so vibrant and just colorful. It works. Taika Waititi took that as, we need to focus heavily on the comedy and let all the other stuff aside.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Taika Waititi, already as it is, has a very unique sense of humor. His comedic sensibilities are not for everyone, and so if you didn't like it in Ragnarok, you're most definitely not going to like it here, because not only is it present, but it's the majority of what this film makes up. But also, there was such an over-reliance on the comedy and the humor that there was no possible chance for any of the dramatic elements that this film was somewhat pushing to stand out, to resonate, to feel any sort of impact. And there was such an excessiveness to it that I was looking around at the audience that I was watching this movie with, and I think that this is the first time in I don't know how long that I have sat down for a Marvel movie with a crowd that was not engaged or invested whatsoever. It's almost like we were all numb to it, because when there is so much of a good thing, it turns into not such a good thing anymore. And I said this in my initial reaction, but it got to the point to where I was thinking the entire time, what's the point? We also got introduced to Jane Foster as Mighty Thor. She made a return here, and I think for the most part, this is the best we've ever seen her character in terms of charisma and just interesting elements. She's not just a fill-in character, not just a love interest. She has a mind of her own. She has an arc to go on, and I like a lot of what they did with her character. But then there are also things that are extremely frustrating. Just in general, how she turns into Mighty Thor, it was some of the most glossed over, shallow, incoherent storytelling that I've seen in quite some time from a Marvel movie. It just happened. And that's what I can say for most of this film, is it almost felt like they didn't have a plan going into this, and they just wanted to get you from A to B without actually filling in any of the details. They didn't really have a clear idea of the objective here. They just wanted to be like, oh, that's something from the comics that people will like. Let's throw that in there. Christian Bale in the MCU, that's going to get a lot of eyeballs because he's such a great actor. But let's not develop any of the narratives, any of the storylines whatsoever. We'll just throw it in there and see if it sticks. The film also has a tendency to take all of the nuance and the depth of the gods and what is beyond our world and just sort of throw it out the window and turn everything into a joke of itself, a parody. That's a word that's going around a lot for this movie. A parody. It felt like a stage play, or if Saturday Night Live was to do their rendition of a Thor movie. In terms of Taika Waititi's sensibilities and his filmography, this falls in line a lot more with What We Do in the Shadows than it does with something like Jojo Rabbit. It almost felt like a mockumentary. The only standout performance in this movie for me was Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, and I understand that the entirety of his character is someone who remains in the shadows and comes out to cause destruction, but really, he was so far in the shadows and so far covered up by all of the overly comedic sensibilities that he got lost in the mix. And every time he came back, I was like, this is so refreshing, I want more of this. And then he would disappear just as quickly, and it never felt like there was a clear resolution to his character. It never felt fulfilling enough when he was on screen, because there was so much else going around that just totally drowned it out, and that's very disappointing because he had the potential to be one of Marvel's best villains to date. Every time that there was something that I enjoyed, there was something equally as frustrating. But taking a step back and looking at it as a whole, all of those things that were frustrating almost weigh out the stuff that I did enjoy, just because there's not a ton of logic to anything that went on. In fact, there are multiple times as well to where characters are just sort of rewritten to fit the narrative and to make sure that the resolution actually happens and can happen and is possible. Some characters die out of nowhere. Some characters gain new abilities that they didn't have before. Some characters just morph into something completely different off screen. Nothing felt earned, and nothing narratively really made sense. I came out of this film very conflicted and mixed in my opinions, but the more that I've pondered on it and really processed what I saw, I think I fall more on the negative side with this one. There was just a lot that it was trying to do, and in the process it did nothing at all. It didn't feel like there were stakes. It didn't feel like the weight of the universe was on Thor's shoulders. It didn't feel like it tied in really with anything the MCU has been setting up for, and it also didn't really develop the character of Thor anymore. He's been stuck in a limbo for the past 4 movies, and he still feels like he's in the same place. It was just a bit exhausting and forgettable, and unfortunately, that's why I'm going to have to give Thor Love and Thunder a 4 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and like I said in the beginning, make sure to comment down below and just give me all your thoughts and opinions on the film, because I know that there's a very split reaction to this movie so far, and a lot of people enjoy it, and a lot of people not so much, and I definitely think it comes down to your comedic taste and whether or not you're a big fan of Taika Waititi and his humor. I think to each their own. Everyone's gonna react to it differently, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. But as always, I appreciate all the support you continue to give me. Make sure to stay tuned for a lot more Marvel content to come your way, and until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.